something with you before we baptize and confirm our elect and candidates. Our church in the early church in the first 5 years, the first 5 centuries, came to a beautiful insight. Dr. Scott Hahn came to the same insight in his readings. And at first he thought he had discovered this, and then he went back to the text of the first 5 centuries in the church, and he said, the church already discovered this. I thought I discovered it, but the church already discovered it. But this was the insight. The young church recognized that these 3 days, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter, is one liturgy. It's one unit. Mass for us, the liturgy for us, begins on Holy Thursday and doesn't end until the Easter celebration. For us, this is the end. This Easter Vigil is the close of our liturgy. For our sisters and brothers who are not with us this evening, it will be tomorrow. And through the 3 days, the church invites us to recognize that we are still in service. When we go home, we have dinner, we watch TV, we are still in service for 3 days. It doesn't end until Easter. The church came to that insight in the first 5 centuries. Dr. Scott Hahn, who was eventually baptized in our faith tradition, had come to that insight as well. That Holy Thursday doesn't end on Holy Thursday. The liturgy doesn't end on Holy Thursday. It just continues. Dr. Hahn so beautifully articulates in his book that Jesus is celebrating the Paschal meal with his disciples in the upper room. And there are 4 chalices that he has to drink from, right? If you know the Seder meal, you know the Paschal meal, there are 4 chalices of blessing. You got to drink 4 times. Jesus doesn't. He drinks 3 times. He lets his apostles drink the 4th cup, but he doesn't drink it. He says, I will not drink again until I enter into my Father's kingdom. So what happens, Dr. Hahn says, Jesus is on a cross on Calvary. And one of the soldiers places sour wine on a piece of sponge on his spear and raises it up to the lips of Jesus there in his final agony. At that point, Jesus must have seen the heavens opening up because he said, it is finished. When they put the wine to his lips, he said, it is finished. He must have seen his Father coming. He's now in the kingdom, surrenders his last breath, and the Paschal celebration is finished. It is finished. The Paschal celebration is finished. It began at the upper room. It finished on the cross on Calvary. Because you have to drink the 4 cups to complete the service. It would be no different for us Catholics, as I explained recently. If I told you to go home after the Our Father, how would you feel? Wait a minute, this is not complete. It's not finished, Father Gerry. What are you talking about, leave? It was the same with the Paschal celebration. And it took Jesus 3 days to celebrate the Paschal meal. It takes us 3 days to complete the Paschal mystery. This evening we're going to be baptizing 4 of our candidates. We'll be confirming 10. Those who are being baptized will also be confirmed. They're entering into full communion with our faith tradition. And the mystery of the moment for them is to recognize fully the invitation to love. Jesus says, this is my commandment to you. love one another as I have loved you. They're not only called to love people of the faith tradition in which they're entering this evening. They're called to love all of their sisters and brothers and those outside of our faith tradition, as well as those who have no faith tradition. Jesus does not put boundaries and parameters on his commandment to love. That's a pretty tall order. The apostles said to Jesus, Lord, who can do this? Who can do this? You're asking us to love our enemies, to pray for our persecutors? Jesus, who can do this? Jesus says, for man it's impossible. I agree with you, Peter. For man it's impossible, but not for God. With God all things are possible. So what happens this evening to those to be baptized and confirmed is the power of God's grace enters into the temple of your body, and what is impossible for you to do is possible in Christ. This grace is the outpouring of God's own life energy into you. That's what grace is. It's God's life power coming into you. That's what it makes it possible to love. To love people in your own tradition, to love people outside of your faith tradition, and to love people who have no faith tradition. To recognize that all are our sisters and our brothers, and God is asking us to love everyone. And what I can't do because of the weakness of my flesh and wounded human nature, I can do in Christ, who lives in me, whose grace empowers me, and whose salvific love teaches me to love my sisters and my brothers. Those to be baptized and confirmed, that's what you're coming into. Pretty heavy, isn't it? We never told you it was going to be easy. But God's grace is working in you so that your love will deepen with every passing day, every passing week, every passing month, every passing year, until the day that you take your last breath. Insofar as you stay open to that invitation and allow God to work within you. Gerry's going to come forth. Invite those who to be baptized.